Okay, perfect. Thank you all so much for coming out today. I appreciate on a cold December day, and especially right now when people may be thinking about lunch, to come out and listen today to the town hall. First, I want to thank Russell County Online News, RC Online News, that's putting this on, live streaming on Facebook. In the times we live in today, I know not everyone can make it out of their homes. And this is also a good way for being transparent and being recorded, so anything I say can be watched back, and that's just the life I live. My wife tells me that all the time. She's always watching me too. So thank you guys in Russell County for the work you're doing. I just listened in on the local Chamber of Commerce meeting to hear some things that they've been working on. It's been a challenging year. I think Nick Shear was, as the president of the Chamber, just talked about how difficult this has been for everybody, for businesses and for individuals and for all of us. And so I first just want to offer grace to all people that have had to make some very difficult decisions this year. I know our educators have been under stress and strain, our businesses have, our government leaders, and so just for everyone, I just offer my personal grace of blessings for you all and the world we've lived in, and hopefully we can see a light at the end of the tunnel soon. To Mr. Ford, thank you for offering up the natatorium today, for hosting this here on school property as well. Greatly appreciate your leadership here with the school system. And I also want to welcome Josh Branscombe, my good friend that I'll be going in with this legislative session, representing this House district. I had a wonderful relationship with Jeff Hoover. I want to first thank Jeff also and honor him for his service throughout this entire district here. Jeff was a great mentor for me. I'll miss Jeff, but I do look forward to having Josh up there and working with him, and we will have a very close relationship. Because there's many things in the first year of where Josh will have a lot of questions. I think the first question he'll have is, Max, where's the bathroom at in the Capitol? Because when you first get up there, it is drinking from a fire hydrant. My advice is basically take it all in. Don't get too zealous. Just kind of watch how things play out, because it is a process. But Josh is going to do phenomenal in his position up there. I want to talk just real briefly about a couple of things as we're starting to go into this legislative session, then open it up for any questions that anyone may have. As you know, COVID has completely changed everything with all that we do. Last session, COVID hit right about February or March. I was a college professor. I teach at the University of Kentucky. I teach a grad class in intelligence. And I was with my class at the time that we were hearing about this virus from China. Now, the students I have are wanting to go work for the CIA and the FBI and the State Department, and they're all grad school students, very sharp. And I said, well, let's go ahead and start forecasting this out. You know, that's what you're all wanting to do, be intelligence professionals and work in the world of espionage. And I said, when's it going to hit the United States, and will this be such a big deal? Let's kind of do scenario role-playing. Most of them thought, just like many of us, that this is a virus, but it's going to be just like anything else we've heard before with SARS or swine flu or things like that. It sounds bad, but does it really turn out to be what it was? And so if I was probably giving grades for my class, they probably all would have failed, but I would have failed right along with them. If you would have told me in August we would not have had schools opening in person, I would have failed that as well, because I told all my kids, don't worry, the summer months will be here, this is going to be gone, and you get right back to your normal life in August. And we know that's not happened. I do, in terms of the detriment that it has probably caused for most young people, I don't think there'll be any amount of data or research that'll ever show what the pandemic has actually done to our young people in the world today. I've been very vocal to get kids back in school and to be in person. I think I speak for a lot of parents and educators and others that want to see their children back in school, but in a safe environment. And I say that because I'm a dad of 4 kids. I've got a senior, a freshman, a 7th grader, and a 4th grader. So I've seen in person, I've seen virtual, I've seen hybrid, I've seen it all. And what best works for my kids may not be what's best for other children. But I will say that my kids have struggled through this from all the different stages of the lives they're in. And I'm hoping with the governor's announcement yesterday that we can start getting some type of in-person. Now, at the same time, I do want it to be safe. If there are educators and there's parents and there's students that still do not feel safe, I think we need to accommodate those needs and those wants. I do also think that education has forever changed for the future of Kentucky and the future of the world. I don't think we'll see education the same that it was before the pandemic hit. I think it's going to bring some opportunities. I think we're going to see virtual academies that are probably going to happen with online schooling. But if we do that, my stress to those education professionals, Mr. Ford, and also our education commissioners, let's make sure that we have, though, some participation in that online environment if it's there. It's not just logging on for attendance, that we're making sure that children actually are getting the educational tools that they need. I want goals, I want objectives, and I want standards put if we do more online learning for that segment of our society. I'm also a proponent right now for early high school graduation. I think we need to hurry up and get kids out. I've got a senior right now that's working at a pharmacy. She's ready to go. And if she's fulfilled her requirements, let's let her get out and let's let her get moving on. She's going to go to college in the fall. Other kids may not. But if there are jobs and opportunities for some of these children, if we're going to say it's going to be strictly virtual or anything like that, which I think the way it's going to be now is more local control, I think that there is a push for early high school graduation. And we may see that for the future of education. I think there's going to be a lot of things once again that's going to present itself. Unemployment has been a huge issue for my office and for myself over the past month since March. Yesterday I was in Frankfurt and I asked my legislative aide if she could pull up how many people have contacted just my office alone from my Senate district about unemployment since March. 1,120 people within this Senate district have still not received any type of unemployment help. That is a problem, that is a mistake, and that is absolutely uncalled for, that we in 2020 cannot get the assistance to people that need it. Some of that is still since March, people. That's a problem. The legislature cannot fix unemployment on our own. That falls under the executive branch. We've spent $20 million on a government contract out of the executive branch that did not produce diddly squat with helping these people with unemployment. Somebody got a kickback, but it sure wasn't the people that needed the help with this. And so we have got to change unemployment the way the system is. I know it is archaic. It should have been worked on years ago. I want to thank the people that are working in the Lake Cumberland Ag District for the work that they're doing. I know they have been exhausted. They have been overextended. But we must fix this. If it's having to do it legislatively, then we will take the lead this legislative session to do so. Because we cannot, if you all would hear, and I know there's people from the ad here that know what I'm talking about, or these phone calls that we get. It's heartbreaking. And these people that are truly on desperate times. Now also with that, the federal government's going to have to play a huge role as we move forward. If they're going to offer benefits, if they're going to offer some type of extended rates and some extended circumstances to some people. And I'm not for the federal government overextending themselves because we have to get people back to work, we got to get back to society, we got to get back to our way of lives, and not just allowing everyone just to kind of hang on to government and then it just extends itself to generations upon generations. But those that are desperate right now, we have to do all that we can to help out. I want to also touch briefly on government overreach. I want to talk about the different levels and the different branches of government of what we've seen. The governor, and I'm being very transparent, I know I'm being recorded, I know I've got the media here, but the working relationship between the executive branch and the legislative branch is absolutely not essential. It is zero. Whenever we have meetings we try to schedule with the governor and the governor's office, we may get Rocky Adkins that'll listen to us and come, but our legislative leadership at the House and Senate are absolutely at wit's end of trying to sit down and work in a bipartisan manner. I wouldn't say this if I'm not telling the truth. This has got to change. The tone has got to change. It depends on all of us to work together during a pandemic. We do not, as the legislative branch, need to be told 1 hour before a press conference that we're shutting down the entire economy of Kentucky. We do not need to be told 1 hour before a press conference we're closing schools for Christian schools and public schools. We can't be told that. We need to be brought into those conversations early and let us have input as well as we try to make best decisions for the people that we represent. We will have legislation this session that is going to focus on future issues with the governor's office. Section 39A of the state constitution deals with executive orders during a time of natural disaster. As I mentioned, none of my students at the grad level thought of a pandemic. I didn't think of it. I don't think anyone in this room probably thought of the extent of a pandemic such as this. But we are going to look at going forward, if there are future governors, Republican, Democrat, Independent, that are elected, that after a certain period of time, the legislature can gavel themselves in to make decisions that they feel is best for their constituents. That may be 30 days, that may be 45 days. But since we gavelled out on April 15th, we have been kept in the dark. We have not been able to talk and not been able to say, let's talk about unemployment. Let us try to gavel in and help on some of these issues. So future pandemics, future terrorist attacks, future tsunamis, anything, ice storms, we need the ability to gavel ourselves back in because we represent you. We represent the people. So I truly believe you will see some change along those lines. Now, I also don't envy the governor. No one does. No one envies all 50 governors across the United States of what they've had to deal with. But I also don't like the consistently inconsistency we've seen of picking and choosing. Some certain things can be open and some certain things cannot. I have a major problem with that. I'm sure some of y'all do, some of y'all may not. I've been with the governor on some of the things he's made decisions on, but I hear from my constituents about other things of saying, yes, this should be open or this should not. I was in Lexington over the weekend. I could sit inside a wedding tent venue with 10 propane tanks heating up a tent, but I couldn't go inside the restaurant. But I'm fine if I'm inside that wedding venue tent. They're probably spending some of these restaurants more on propane than they're making off the bill of what they're able to get at those restaurants. That's wrong. I've talked about schools, and there's been some other things we've seen that have happened in the Commonwealth. So we need to make sure that in future times that the legislative branch can step up in times such as this. Other things you're probably going to hear about this legislative session is going to be tax reform. I have championed and I've tried to talk about tax reform, but when I talk about tax reform, I'm talking about truly monumental type of tax reform that should be done. I want to really quickly just let everybody know kind of the tax world that we're in right now is the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Kentucky ranks 21st overall in the tax burden on its citizens. You don't want to be number one, you want to be close to 50. We're 21st. But with that, North Carolina's 33rd, Indiana's 35th, and Tennessee's 48th. Tennessee, as you know, has no state income tax, but they have a higher sales tax based on consumption. That's the model I've always thought would be best for Kentucky to try to move forward to. If you look also at the overall tax burden of Kentucky, New York, California, Oregon, Maryland, Minnesota are the worst states than Kentucky when it comes to overall tax burden. I don't want to be in the same conversation as New York and California. Not for sure about you all. But we're Kentucky and we need to make sure that as we go forward as a state, we're not making that tax on our retirement, our salaries, and our income. We need to base that off of consumption base that will be fair to all. I do think you're going to see that. We need revenue in the worst way. I would love to have lunch for everybody today, but we can't do it. I could have put on maybe Brenda Higginbotham, but we simply need revenue. We should have been looking at tax reform 30 years ago. North Carolina and Tennessee passed us up 30 years ago when they made changes in their tax structure. We didn't do that. We just kind of puddled along. Now, we did a blue ribbon commission. We studied it. That didn't do anything. You got to show action with that as well. Fuel tax will be discussed. Right now, sorry about that. Fuel tax also will be discussed this legislative session. For every penny we raise with the state fuel tax raises the road plan $30 million. I took that vote before, but that was not during also a time of a pandemic. I'm not saying I'm going to take it or not going to take it, because when you look at roads and projects and bridges and infrastructure, we have to have money to pay for those type of things. But I think you'll see that this legislative session, it'll come out of the House. Any tax bill, any revenue bill will come out of the House. So Josh gets the first bite at the apple. So I'll be working closely with Josh on a lot of these issues when the House gets it before we do. You're probably thinking about 127. The completion of the Russell County side is supposed to be done by July of 2021. The Clinton County project should be let here shortly. And right now, I think around the dam, they're working on some rock mitigation issues up there. You know, we have to deal with the U.S. Corps of Engineers, and you all should probably know how difficult it is to deal with the federal government sometimes. I'm not passing blame on them. I'm just talking about the bureaucracy of both levels of government trying to work together. But we've got some great road projects for this area. I tip my hat to Jeff Hoover. I tip my hat to the ones who came before I did in this seat, but I'm here to represent you. And when that road plan comes about, please know what I'm trying to do my best, because I'm not going to be here in this job forever. I'm just occupying a seat for right now. But I will say this in terms of the overall road plan and the projects. The reason we started to see things happen here is because we flipped the House to Republican. Republican House, Republican Senate equals a very strong road plan for Republican areas. Before that, Greg Stumbo and the Democrats, everything went to Eastern Kentucky. And I'm not saying it didn't need to go to Eastern Kentucky, but we forgot about God's country down here. It was all focused on golden triangles and everything else. So I think once we get this done in probably the next 2 to 4 years, you're going to see some major tourism operations open up. You're going to see some avenues for logistics and hopefully for more businesses. And I know there's some good stuff coming out of Russell County Industrial Development Authority. I've been talking with Benny Garland about App Harvest. I just heard about the NEAT project, their plant that's going to be coming in. I work very closely with Benny and a lot of your leaders here and trying to get them in touch with the right people in Frankfort. So there's some good things happening. Medical marijuana, I'm just going to touch on a whole host of issues that just because they're out there, you guys need to know what's happening. Medical marijuana passed the House last year. It passed the committee, it passed off the floor, it got to the Senate. Because of COVID, we didn't have a chance to deal with it. I don't know if that's going to be such a priority this session. I will say it'll be filed again, more than likely it will. But I'll worry about if that's if we're talking about that being ingested by a pill, if that's something being inhaled by smoking, because I don't know the study on the carcinogens. Dr. Rick Miles is so much smarter than I am. I did the political science easy route. I'll let him do the hard stuff. But you know, medical marijuana for me is something that right now I don't really have a firm grasp on as a yes or no. The only thing I will say is this: as a son of a stage 4 cancer survivor, I would have done anything for my child. And then we also don't know the long-term effects of COVID and what that's going to do for people that have had it. But I always keep an open mind on some things, but we'll see what the House does with medical marijuana and if it's the same bill as it was last year. Speaking on the House, another thing that's going to be brought up, you're going to hear about is sports gaming, sports wagering. That will be a House bill if that does get off the ground over there. Any revenue bill, once again, has to be in the House. My only concern about that is, first of all, my district is very much, if I did a poll of that, any type of gaming issue is probably not going to play well with a lot of people in my district. But looking at revenue for this, if we're looking to pass sports gaming, if I'm a no vote on that, I want to make sure that revenue, though, is going to the state and it's not just going to the purses of the horse industry. I like the horse industry, don't get me wrong. I think it's great for the Derby and it's great for Kentucky, but also at the same time, if we need revenue, let's not put everything just right back into the sports, in the horse racing industry. Let's make sure that that money is dished around. We have a horrible suffering pension problem that I've talked about for years, and you all know this. We probably need to put revenue dollars into certain pension programs that are out there. So whatever we look to do, if we pass anything with sports gaming, because every state around us has done so, we need to make sure that that revenue is going towards other areas and not just going into solely one industry. That's my personal opinion about that. Impeachment. I get probably 10 to 12 emails a week about impeachment. Impeachment of the governor would start in the House. It does not start in the Senate. I'm not privy to any conversations about impeachment at all, anything like that that's happened. Once again, I give grace for everyone that's trying to do their best during this time. I know not a lot of the decisions have been popular, but in terms of bringing up articles of impeachment, things such as that, the House will have to deal with that. The Senate, you know, we're a judge and jury, but we have not had any conversations with our caucus about that. But if the House wishes to bring that up, then that's who you need to contact. And I'm not throwing Josh under the bus. It's just the process. It's just how the system works. The House has to do those formalities if that's being discussed along those lines. So the budget will be the #1 issue. it'll be the number 2 issue, and it'll be the number 3 issue. All these other things are kind of going to be secondary because we have to balance the budget. We do not have a printing machine of money in Frankfurt. That's all handled at the federal government. But we also cannot bail out everybody with COVID. So we have to make sure that this budget is balanced. We have to look once again at the future of some of these agencies that we have. I think the toughest budgets are going to be the next 2 or 3 years, not so much this year. This is still going to be tough, don't get me wrong, but I think it's when we get out of COVID is when we start to see some issues there with the budget that are going to be very, very tough unless we do tax reform, unless we do some more revenue measures. And I also want to touch on, before I open up for questions, is about vaccinations. You will not find me voting to mandatorily vaccinate every single citizen in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. That is a personal choice. That's up to the employers. That's up for the different agencies of government. If the Kentucky Department of Education wants to mandate that every teacher and every superintendent is vaccinated, then that's their decision. But I will not cast a vote that makes every person in this room line up outside of here that's forced into taking a vaccination. I do think that's a person's choice, and that's their right to do so. However, I want to get schools back in session, and I'm hoping that they can make the best decision to open those up safely. But I've not heard yet anything about mandatory vaccines for teachers or anyone like that. I just think that, you know, we all need to get back, but it shouldn't be the government. And one of the things I've learned through this whole epidemic, this whole pandemic, is this. I value my freedoms and I value my liberties, I think, more than anyone, just like you all do. I do not like seeing when government says, here's the medicine and we're going to make you take this medicine because we think it's best for you. You all know what's best for your individual business. You know what's best for your students. You know what's best for your families. I do not want government overreach in a time of a pandemic or elsewise to be telling us, here's your medicine and we know what's best. I'm a very, very local control person in my life in the way that I also operate in my position in the state senate. So with that, I would love to open up for questions because I know you all have many other things to do today. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take those on any topic or anything I didn't discuss. Thank you.
You spoke to the sports betting and you really kind of hit on the piece around the Kentucky horse industry. With the current ruling on Supreme Court and especially around the horse racing machines, why do you feel that wouldn't be a better method to take on from a total expanded gaming state perspective rather than just in that industry?
Yeah, I think in the court ruling on that of how that is, you're exactly right. We have expanded gaming and it has been going on. I just want to make sure if we're trying to capture money off of betting on college football, betting on phone apps, things like that, where the money is going to be going towards, if we're able to direct that. It's like we did with the lottery with scholarship money. I want to make sure that the money in that is going to be generated back to the revenue of the state and not just going towards one particular industry. Because I've heard that's what may happen. If we pass sports gaming, instant wagering off your phone, that it would lead right back into, or maybe it will be you have to go to Keeneland or Churchill to place that bet. So if we're doing those type of things, I want to make sure though, if that passes, and once again, this is a House issue, that we need to make sure we're capturing the best revenue for the state because of the economic times we're in. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I have a question. It's probably out of the realm of it's probably much smaller. I moved here about almost 4 years ago, and one of the things that I do is that I pick up trash locally, and I've been trying to figure out what the hierarchy is to whom to go to ask. And the person that I spoke with said, oh, there's only one person who picks up trash in Adair County. And I said, really? And they only focus on the main roads, like not any of the small little roads that go, I live off of 76.
Right.
So I'm just kind of questioning how I would go about eliciting people to do this, or I don't want, again, I'm like you, I don't want government overreach in my life. But there seems to be quite a bit of trash on the roads here, and Kentucky is such an
That's a great question. I think a lot depends on the road, if it's a county road, if it's on a state road, and also in terms of contacting many times the fiscal court with your county judges to make sure on that. Depends on the road that you're on, if you are in the county. And also it could come into a jail issue. A lot of times because of trash pickup, that's left to the local jails in those communities for the prisoners and for those needing to go pick up. I'm happy once we leave here to take your name and number and try to maybe help. If you're an Adair County citizen, is that correct, resident?
Yes.
Yes. I'm happy to put you in touch with the right people over there on that. You're very welcome. You're welcome. Yes.
You mentioned the challenge of working with the government legislature, and that it shouldn't be that way. What specifically can you do, and you guys do, to keep the government from making these reliable decisions that a lot of the state is not in favor of?
The question was about the governor relationship, and I'll also say this. I mean, the previous governor, too, many times made decisions that were unilateral, not so much during a pandemic, but also that didn't reach out to everyone, even legislature included. And maybe that's just a frustration with overall government, that we just need more communication and listening skills. I think the number one priority of leadership is listening, and we're just not seeing that. And so we hope that once we get back into session, we can have those conversations. I will say this, in terms of the budget, that is the one area right now the governor is working with our leadership on. But the governor also needs that budget. So when the decisions were being made, the unilateral decisions on shutting down, I mean, those one of the things when we first initially shut down the entire economy the way that it was, the question was asked, what's this going to do for unemployment? What's this going to do for the ad districts? There never was an answer. And so that decision was made, and that's detrimental. So I'm hoping that if he's helping now kind of work on budget, that can help get us into some of these other areas as well. I truly believe that. Yes, Dr. Miles.
When was the last time a state computer system was upgraded? When we
Yeah.
talked about it, that's a big part of why we're not keeping the needs. Last time I was up there, they're still using green sheets.
Yeah. Yeah, our computer system is outdated, and I'm not going to say that all the unemployment issues are just based off solely a contract award that wasn't done fairly. You're right. We need to pump more money into systems such as that. That was one of the things that we talked about with the Bev administration, was shutting down some of these unemployment offices, but unemployment was low at that time. So, but at the same time, it is an archaic system. We do need to make changes. We need to push money into that. You know, one of the things Governor Bevan did, he brought in this chief information technology person. We spent all this money with this position, but you know, looking back on that salary should have went more towards upgrades to computer systems than anything. Yeah. Zach.
Legislature's looking at some issues with no-knock warrants after.
Good question.
What do you see going forward with that?
That's an excellent question. I didn't touch on that. So the no-knock warrants, yes, President Stivers of the Senate has filed legislation to deal with that. He's working with the House on that measure as of right now. You know, we don't want to overstep too much into local police departments and the decisions that they do make, but we do feel like this is one of the areas with no-knock warrants that needs to be looked at. I do think you'll probably see some criminal justice reform things that maybe come out. I think we're going to try our best as a legislature to also, the city of Louisville, as you all know, we need Louisville progressing just because of the engine that Louisville is. And I'm looking at you, Dr. Miles, you know this. What happened up in Louisville has been terrible to the state because of no one's wanting to go downtown. Nobody is shopping. No one is spending money. They're not investing like they were before this summer with everything that happened between the horrible storm of Breonna Taylor and the riots and the pandemic and everything that happened. But we need to also make sure that a certain end of Louisville, it's the west end of Louisville, we can help people as well. We need to make sure that if they're trying to get entrepreneurship loans and start businesses, they're not being left out. So you're going to see some things this session that the legislature is going to do to help the city of Louisville, because once again, if Louisville is not prospering, the state is going to struggle just with, once again, trying to get revenue and some other things that are there. But I think no-knock warrants will be something along some, I'm not on judiciary, but what I've heard and I expect that's probably going to happen. Yeah. Real quick on education, just because I'm the Senate Education Chairman, My first meeting that we'll have in January is bringing in 4 teachers, elementary, middle, high, and a special needs teacher, just to listen to them and let them talk about everything that's happened. What's good with virtual? What's bad with hybrid? What's the needs? Because I can speak to Mr. Ford all day, but I need to also listen to everyone else within the teaching walls and within the school buildings. And so that first week's going to be a listening session for us. You're probably going to see some things in terms of third grade reading levels that we're going to push for to make sure there's some funding for that. I'm also pushing for less testing and assessments. I think we over-test our students so much. I think it's always teach to a test. And this is no slam against teachers or Mr. Ford. It's what basically the state tells them to do. I think you're going to see ways to save state money is cutting out so much of standardized tests. Mr. Ford, there's one test in particular, it's like $23 million the state spends on testing. Let's remove that. Let's let you get back to teaching. Thank you very much. There's some things there. And when I talk about $23 million, that sounds like a whole lot. But when you deal with billions of dollars in the state budget, we've got to find 23 here, 50 here, some things that we can look to do. But education has changed, and it's never going to be the same. I look forward to maybe seeing it as an opportunity to have Kentucky come out of this looking differently with education than we ever did before. Yeah.
Along with education, with going to the hybrid models, virtual models, is it going to be a part of the discussion? What parameters are going to be set, and what steps are going to be taken to measure the impact that this actually had on the students and their education?
It's a great question. I don't think, this is myself speaking, I don't think this spring we will look to require standardized testing in the state of Kentucky. I think we're going to have to push it off. The only reason being is because I don't think our students are ready, and to put that on to Mr. Ford to do more standardized testing to see where we're at. We need to make sure we know where our kids are. But I don't know if because of so much virtual, and once again, some counties still in the red may still choose not to go back to in-person. But I do believe that the best way to do that, we have an Office of Educational Accountability that does research. We're going to have to dig into that. But as we all know, the research and the data is still not going to be anything we're going to get quickly. It's going to be months to maybe years out to look back at how much this has truly impacted us on the mental health, the socialization, suicides, pregnancies, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, all these things that have happened. Because I hate to say this, but I'm talking as a father here. When we're virtual, you're leaving kids at home and parents have to work, there's no child care. That's scary. And once again, I think I got good kids, but my kids make mistakes. But I worry about that sometimes, and I know everybody's trying to do their part, but there's probably some things we're not thinking of what's happened during this whole pandemic to young people that truly was never thought of before. So, we're going to have to capture all those stats and all those figures.
Senator, I'll add on the testing, we'll need some waivers on the feds.
Yes, correct. And you're going to need help with FEMA. You all were sold a bogus, basically a wish list that you guys could go out, and now you're being told what I'm told by the federal government, FEMA, that money's not there as it once was, and that's not right. Please know Congressman Comer and I talk weekly, and he is aware of that, and so I know he's trying to still get that money to help offset some of the expenses that you had of PPE and plexiglass and things like that were bought, and y'all were told it was going to be reimbursed or helped out, so we're working on that. Anybody else? Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Teachers' retirement.
Great question. Teachers' retirement was just actually in the news yesterday. There was a interim task force that looked at teachers' retirement. The bill that is being filed, I'm told the bill will come out tomorrow, being pre-filed out of the House. Once again, I look over to Josh because a lot of stuff happens first in the House. Retirement issues also start in the House. It will affect new hires, is the bill that is being introduced tomorrow. It is a plan that will not touch Kentucky teachers' retirement, retirees, or current educators, but look to put teachers that are coming in the 2022 year into a cash hybrid that's mobile for them. It's not a defined benefit plan, But the reason we're having to shift, if we do this bill at all, we may not have the bandwidth to take this on because we're dealing with budgets and all these other things that are happening. But looking at current system the way that it is, the defined benefit plan for the next 30 years for new hires is only going to hurt retirees and current teachers. We've got to find a way to transition out of that plan because we did it for state employees, we did it for everyone else that was in state, but teachers have kind of been left harmless. If it's for new hires only, that way it's mobile, they can invest what they want to invest in, they want to make it their own type of 401A, whatever it is that they're comfortable with. And that way, if they stay in teaching for 10 years, or they stay in it for 30 years, it's there for them. But they can dictate what their plan's going to be. We feel like that would be the best way to look at teachers' retirement without trying to do anything to harm current or retirees.
Okay, my question is, where's the money going to come from? Or if we don't have it coming in from the teachers, new teachers, then where's the money going to come from to fulfill the obligations to your retired teachers now and the ones that will retire in the next few years?
I think that's where, once again, we look at tax reform. We look at some other avenues that are there to possibly generate revenue. We know the current system, teachers' retirement, like I said, for the long picture, if you add more people onto it, it's just not sustainable. Even the way it currently is, it's in pretty good shape compared to others. But I think that's, once again, we get back to where's revenue, where can it be diverted to make sure there's injections of money going into that. Also, I would look for, if I'm not sure everybody drives a Tesla in here next year, I don't think you do, but any of these electronic vehicles, we're probably going to tax them because what we're seeing in the next 5 years, vehicles like Teslas and e-vehicles, they're going to be very popular, maybe not so much in Jamestown, but Louisville, Lexington, and other areas, we will be taxing those. I can't say right now what the collection of tax will be off that, but what we're projecting and what we're seeing is going to be in the next 5 years, especially with Tesla now moving to Texas and not to a liberal state like California. I think you're going to see more ability for Tesla in Texas probably to be able to do a whole lot more than what they could have before. You're welcome. Anyone else? Dr. Miles?
Again, part of what she was talking about, with the health department on the board, we have $20 million for retirement, but I mean, having been paid over the years, you talk to small towns, cities, you know, they owe multiple millions that they haven't paid, you know. How are we gonna do it? I can tell you the health department, if we have to pay us $20 million in the next 10 years, probably close.
Yep.
I'm sure small towns,
Yep.
cities do the same thing, but what are we looking at as far as how we get it? We're setting money aside and trying to make that, you know, we set so much aside, and, you know, we don't know really how to deal with future.
So everything our leadership has told us is basically we can't, as a state, bail out cities. We can't do this. It's going to have to come from the federal government. And a lot of this in terms of, cities, counties, health departments, it truly is going to have to be us working closely with the feds of trying to get some type of a system that's going to be there. I think you're going to see so many just going to go belly up, and that's why with retirement systems, we have asked if counties want to decide on their own, if they wish to opt out of KRS, they can do so. But at the same time, we're scared if they opt out, they're going to come back to us saying, hey, we can't now pay for this. Now it's coming back to you guys. It's a very dangerous situation we're in right now. And Josh is going to see this. This is one of the most difficult things our state's dealing with right now is having to pay for things when we don't have a lot of excess money to do this with. So we're going to have, like I said, I'm not looking for Senator McConnell and them to just come in and just say, hey, here's a magic wand, it's all taken care of. But we're going to have some assistance in some of the most critical areas. Once again, I know everybody's got things to do today. I'm going to stick around if anybody needs to talk to me after this is over. Once again, I just want to thank you all. This is probably the best ever town hall that I've had in any of my 7 counties. And so I thank the Chamber for helping. I thank RC Online News for being here. And for each of y'all for coming out today to let me share a few things about this upcoming session. I just simply ask for one thing. I ask for your prayers. When we go into session, what we do, and Josh is going to see this, it's easy right now. This is the easy part. And the easy part's at the grocery store where you can tell somebody and listen to their concerns, but the hard part is when you actually take votes. That separates us from anyone else. But I just ask for your prayers as we make very tough decisions that deal with people's lives. Every decision we make, every vote we take, have people that many times we don't know the impact of what that vote's going to take. So I just simply say pray for our governor, pray for our Commonwealth, pray for our legislature, and pray for our country as we go forward this next legislative session. But once again, thank you guys so much for your attention. We look forward to hanging around talking, but have a Merry Christmas and God bless. Thank you all.